Oh my goodness. This is going to be my lesson for today. Michigan. So we've got two people who are in different states, not Michigan. And would you say that which time zone would you say Michigan is in?
Central.
How about you, Russ?
Central.
Paul, you are in Michigan. What is the correct answer, sir?
Eastern time zone.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I was totally wrong. Didn't even look it up. I was so certain about this.
The time zone line goes right through Lake Michigan.
Ah.
Okay.
That's got it.
I love it. So he so kindly, graciously said, I'm confused. You keep telling me to be there at this time. And it's like he's just, with his kindness and his intelligence going, draw this person into the correct time zone. And right here, I'm looking at a wall and I'm like, I have known this for months. There has to be just a time zone map of the world up here so I can go, and then little tiny stickies with everybody's name so I can go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I had it crisscrossed for Kelly. Kelly, did you say you're in North Carolina?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, my
I'm not born and
goodness.
raised here. I'm from the sticks of New York State.
Oh, my goodness. Paul, have you been Michigan all along?
No. I grew up in Texas and South Carolina. My mother's from North Carolina. And in TV news, I was in Minnesota, Des Moines, and then NBC in Detroit. That's what brought me to Michigan.
That's what brought you to Michigan, was Detroit. So,
News,
Russ, I know what has brought you to where you are now. So, do you want to trace your trail a bit and then let us know why you are where you are now? And Kelly and Paul, I'm going to ask you the same thing. And go ahead and introduce yourselves. I don't know that any of you have met each other before.
No. And this is a wonderful opportunity. And thank you, Christine,
Yes.
for allowing us to get together and talk about
I'm
this
glad
important
you're here.
subject. Because my roadmap and I was a musician. I grew up in Utah. I was a ski bum during the day and a musician at night and played music. And then that music took me to the Northwest back in the late 80s. And then I ended up in Portland, Oregon. I fell 3 stories off a billboard, which got me into advertising. I was on 2 years in rehab and reconstruction. So I ended up going from a musician to a safety director to write fall protection programs. And I eventually ended up I worked for the Sonics and the outdoor and radio and television broadcasting, and until Clear Channel purchased them in 2002, and I became redundant. And so I went through a number of different changes and ended up in Texas. And then I was in Texas for 10 years, and same thing. As soon as I moved, I became redundant. I call it the corporate orphanage. And so I decided to do my own thing, and I've been doing my own thing ever since. So in 2018, mom and dad was getting along a little bit, moving a little slower, not driving quite as much. And my boys decided to say, hey, you should probably go check them out and make sure they're okay. So I moved to Arizona to care for mom and dad and be with them. And because I was virtual and I could live anywhere, work anywhere. And so I've been here ever since. And it's funny because talking about time, Arizona doesn't have daylight savings.
No,
so sometimes I'm in Pacific zone, sometimes I'm mountain time. So I always have to do math to figure out how many hours is it from the person I'm talking to. So, and, but it's wonderful. I'm enjoying the sunshine here. I miss the Northwest rain, as we were talking about earlier, Christine. And I've enjoyed every place I've lived and found reasons to enjoy it. And so now I'm here right now.
Thanks, Kelly. Have you traveled a lot, or are you more like us? We finally made it over one county line after 38, 38 years of marriage, but many more years for my husband. So we were always in Benton County and then finally made it over into Polk County. Or have you also been widely traveled?
I don't know if I would call it widely traveled from a residency standpoint. I grew up in a small town in Western New York called Allegheny, New York. If you follow college basketball, St. Bonaventure's in my hometown. Went to undergrad at the tip top of New York State, St. Lawrence University, and then headed to Springfield College in Springfield, Mass for my master's, and then lived in DC, and then came to Charlotte for my best friend's wedding, who I grew up with. She had relocated here with her now husband and came for their wedding. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love it here. So here I am.
Wow.
So, started out in commercial fitness, personal training, and then found myself 15 years ago in the senior living space, not knowing one iota of anything. Now I know a lot and continue to learn.
I love Charlotte.
In a way, Russ, you are in a senior living space. There are plenty of people who fly away from the Northwest and to escape the the bone rattling cold or what have you.
Yep.
And their arthritis feels better there, a lot of them say. And I know there's less allergies. But Paul, you're also doing something senior wise. I mean, you're innovating and you're moving forward with your expertise in some way. And I really don't know all about it. I didn't research any of you before you said yes. I just said, good, someone's coming.
Well, thanks for having me over. I didn't bring anything. Sorry.
That's okay. Next time.
So I would really characterize it as those of us who are getting older. And that nowadays are people in their 40s and 50s and 60s and above. And it's not making a distinction anymore. And what I was finding is in myself that I was wondering, okay, what am I going to do next? So I was a television news reporter, then I was a content creator, creating every imaginable kind of video and live shows and things of that sort, mostly for most of the car companies in the world, big car reveals or product videos and such. And I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I started looking at what the trend was. And this is about 10 years ago, longer than 10 years ago. And I was seeing that a lot of people were retiring and they were miserable after about a year. Because they had lost their relevance, they had lost purpose, they lost friends, and things like alcoholism, drug abuse, divorce, all kinds of things were happening. And you had this extended lifespan and health span. But then I saw these other people were sitting there saying, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of desire, what am I going to do with these years? And they were reinventing, reimagining, redeveloping themselves. And it's been this mega trend. Double the number of startups every year by boomers than millennials, higher rates of success, and people viewing it as my turn. That was very appealing to me. But also as a storyteller, as a third generation journalist, and remembering both my grandfather and father saying the best story in the world to tell is one that's happening right before everybody's eyes, but they don't get it yet. They haven't connected the dots yet. And I saw this mega trend that was occurring in humans because of the increased life and health span, because of the economy and technology and everything else. And boomers being kind of a very relevant generation with what they started in the 60s with wanting to signify and deciding I'm going to define what my life is like, not let society or parents do it. So it's happening all over again. And again, it is a mega global trend that's going on. And I think we're actually going to be seeing this as the new age of aging, where people are going to be relevant, working, but ideally working at something that they are passionate about and really want to do, even if it means a major transition in their lives. So I'll end with the fact, too, that I originally launched Pro Boomer. So I thought, this is my new way forward. I'm going to do this kind of thing. I'm going to address this issue, offer support, ideas, help for people, things of that sort. I originally targeted it for boomers and launched Pro Boomer. But I very quickly found out, I launched it Ready, Fire, Aim. Just do it, see what's out there. Lo and behold, I found that most people who were engaging with me were in their 40s and 50s and even 30s. And then COVID came along and accelerated it. And everybody now of adult age is sitting there going, what am I doing? You know, the big quit, the great resignation. Now it's known as the big rethink. And that's exactly what this is. And so this has become my new purpose, my new endeavor, my Paul V4, version 4.
And Kelly, I'm sitting here with my hands in my lap, just listening and drinking it all in. And you're like, yeah, I've got it going on. And you popped in about Anna Hall. And I knew that she is going to be an in-person speaker in the middle of November in Roanoke, Virginia. And she also popped in when I mentioned her to, or I tagged just out of habit now, when someone else was in the chat column yesterday when you were on that show. Thank you. Tech Tuesday. Thank you. 2 different women. There's got to be more people who are both going, we're looking at people who are bored, but there's no good reason for it. They are not trapped. They just didn't pre-plan for this, or they just don't know themselves outside of the jobs and the volunteering and the parenting and the necessities of life. They just don't know what they're really about, and keeping just plain busy is not cutting it, just like it didn't cut it all those other years. No one, I think almost no one, graduates from high school or college and goes, you know, someone, what are your plans? Well, I guess I'll just stay busy.
No, nobody said
Well, so why are we thinking that after 65? Yes, in the older cemeteries, you look at the numbers and do the math, and it was like, wow, most of these people did not make it to 60. So you didn't need to make a plan. You just were glad that somebody was going to bury you. I don't know. And, you know, and now it's like, so 105 is not completely out of reach. So that's a lot of years. And what am I really about? So I love what these people are doing. I thank you for putting that in there. So you are 3 really vibrant, intelligent people. And I just want to know, you can jump in any way that you want to talk about this. It comes a little bit from visiting my mom yesterday, now 91. And I like that she's recognizing, she goes, you know, I'm just not doing anything. And I like that she's taking care of her health and where she is this moment health-wise, and that she's recognizing that and is looking at this moment, October 2022 rather than 2021 and 2020. How would I want to be involved? What is important for my future? And I just love that. And so these discussions are coming up that really weren't there before, when it was just trying to get maybe medications correct, or just trying to, you know, deal with life as it is. And now I believe she's looking beyond. So I'm going to ask all 3 of you, and you just jump in and talk to each other.
Well,
I'll
jump in.
Good. How do you envision yourself at 105? What could you be doing at 105? Don't worry about whether there's flying cars or not, but if you want to say that, but just what do you envision yourself being or doing or being involved in or being good at or starting new at 105?
I think I'm going to back up 6 decades. I'm 45. And yeah, I do think I can live to 100. I just do. But I think what you're expressing, Christine, and what we're starting to see in regards to aging and all of the services that fall within that ecosystem is there is actual attention and focus on this. There's piles of research around the difference in how well we age when we have purpose, how purpose helps us build resilience, and that also helps us thrive as we age. And I think the fact that there are now solutions coming to the table and people recognizing this and flushing out a process. So whether it's something like the purpose equation or any other approach or model somebody has, or even the fact that in the senior housing or senior living space, that more attention is being focused on how do individuals go about spending their day. And it's not just all about, senior living is no longer just about clinical care. Still a primary driver in safety and security, but we all know how somebody spends their day is directly correlated to whether they are thriving or declining and impacts their overall quality of life. And so I would think that even kind of doing a personal reflection, if you will, at 45 and then 50 and 55 and 60 and 65 and every few years, because we continue to evolve as humans. Just, I don't like these buckets of, oh, you're 65. This is how you should live your life now. Just like when people make that difficult decision, move in senior living, how dare I at 30, 35, 40, 45 say, well, here's a calendar of how you should spend your day. And I'm going to keep you busy and occupied. That doesn't work for me in our space anymore. Russ, what do you want to say?
Well, I want to amplify a little bit what you're thinking and talking about and kind of tie it in back with Paul's idea of, as a boomer, as part of the boomer generation, we had this roadmap and this idea of how life should be. You graduate, you go to college, you get a job, you find a career, you raise a family, and there's a structure, and then you retire and you enjoy life. Well, they never gave the instructions on what that meant or what that indicated. And also, Christine, like you said, you look at the cemetery and people weren't living as long. And now that longevity is in place, I think we need to rethink and refocus our attention on how we can, like you said, Kelly, purposefully live in the moment and not necessarily retire to be comfortable. It's like, okay, well, I got 50, 60 channels of TV and a recliner here. What else is there? And the reality is there's a lot more that we can do. There's a lot more that, just like this show, Christine, we actually have the opportunity to capture these stories, capture these elements and conversations, and kind of inspire others around us in order to create something that may not be created yet. Paul, you have a lot of things in the journalistic space that could turn into stories from like Mom turned 86. We got a family reunion coming up this weekend, and my intention is that we're going to get some recordings out of it and ask stories and ask questions and build the narrative around that whole process. And I think thinking outside the box and imagining what is possible rather than the limitations that we place on ourselves is something that we have to start thinking more of as we go forward in age. And I call it mileage. I'm just getting mileage. So, but that's where I think we need to start thinking about is how can we be productive? How can we be, make an impact, make it matter?
Yeah. Naturally, given my background, but I also believe there's truth in it. It all starts with awareness on all levels in terms of this new reality that exists with the lifespan, with the health span, with the enabling factors of technology and other things that exist in our world today. You know, I love the expression, things have never changed so fast and they'll never be this slow again. It's hard to keep up with that, except for the new version of the iPhone. And so with all of this completely changes, as you all have been talking about, the opportunity and what will eventually be the new reality of this phase of age. So people as young as, you know, as Kelly and even younger, when they reach this point, it's going to look 100% differently than it does now. People are going to be planning for what they do in this phase of life, and it's not going to be decline. It's not going to be about decline. It's not going to be about retiring. It's not going to even be about what I'm supposed to do. It's going to be about what I want to do and how I can make an impact. In fact, I'll characterize it like this. What's going to happen with people of an older age is the same thing that's happened with people in their 20s in the current age, because in the 1960s, the only entrepreneur you'd possibly find was maybe somebody selling pot. And now that's the venerated age for entrepreneurs as an example of how things are going to completely flip. So the question is, how soon can those of us who are already in this phase or approaching this phase take advantage of it, being what are outliers now, but are actually early adopters of what the new reality and new possibilities are? And I'll also say this. So I'm working on a potential documentary with a major global enterprise, right? And so we're looking at it globally. And right now we're hearing all of these things about, and we've been hearing it for years from the economists and politicians and such who are, you know, have ageist thinking. And by the way, when I say ageism, it's not just somebody saying, oh, you're old, or, you know, like racism or sexism or something. We're all ageist. We use ageist language. We have ageist assumptions and presumptions. It also goes both ways. Oh, you're too young to understand, so on and so forth.
Right.
But these ageist assumptions are thinking, well, old age is supposed to be like this. Everything that we've been talking about, when the reality is different, and certainly down to the individual level. And so there's always been this assumption that the baby boom was global. And so that with the older population, as they get out of the workforce and stop contributing and paying taxes and contributing to the economy, that GDPs globally were going to decline and demand on services such as healthcare and such were going to go up. But now bring that back. Imagine, if you will, the people are working and generating income longer. Plus they are living a purposeful life, which is not only in and of itself physically, emotionally beneficial to your health, period, but the fact that if you're living with purpose, you want to stay healthy and things of that sort, that those start going like this. And so there's a return on investment from institutions and politics and governments to, instead of having ageist assumption policies that disable people who are older, they rather start enabling it because they will get a return on their investment. And the same thing, by the way, with businesses and advertisers, communities, and of course, ourselves.
During the winter between 2020 and 2021, I heard and experienced that people were simply not getting the flu, not running to the doctors with flu and assumption. They were being very careful about not spreading any things that people usually aren't all that careful about. And what I think in my mind, and I'm very, very much a, draw a picture of it or make it like something else. What I think I see is, the change, like it's just everything narrowed down to, and as I get old, I know that these things are going to happen to me and this is going to be tougher. And I certainly am going to have, what's it called? Your income is limited. What is that called?
Fixed income.
Thank you. Fixed. I'm sure all these things are going to happen. All of a sudden people are just like, and my income is no longer fixed. And I'm, rejuvenating my cells, and I'm, so interested and involved in the lives of others or in my research or in my explorations and my endeavors, I just really haven't had time to be isolated or, and all that stuff, it's just going to expand out this way. And I imagine people who are young adults in this era going, I can't wait until I get to be that age and have that much ability to put together all these different experiences and go, wait a minute, if we put these things together this way, that's going to take care of that. And it's going to be fun. It's going to look good. I can't wait until I get to be in my 60s because I'll have so much more that I can throw at whatever it is they're excited about in their 30s. That's what you're making me think. You guys
And
are.
by the way, if I may jump in, and I'll keep it brief, you hit that nail on the head.
Yeah.
Because what's happening, here's the way I characterize it. Here's Paul's not inaccurate oversimplification. In our youth, we learn. And we absorb everything, and especially as kids, as empirical stuff. So we learn. We enter adulthood and think of it as apprentice. We're apprentices in life. We're trying out what we've learned. We're finding our own way. Somewhere when we get older, and by the way, in my messaging, I don't use the word old. Because if you say old, what do you think?
Not new, not young, therefore bad.
Somebody old. If you say older, it's at the very least neutral. So anyway, when we get older, we reach a point through crisis, circumstance, or self-awareness where it's like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
I realized I'm not satisfied. The great rethink, the great resignation, the big quiet quitting, all of this going, what am I doing? That is a moment, as you've said, that when you can reevaluate things, and it's to your point, actually, it's the perfect time to do it because we've been through all of this. We've learned more about life and about the world and about ourselves. We should be capable of identifying, I don't like this, I like this, I'm capable of this. I've got this old belief that was never true or it's outdated. I'm going to get rid of that and identify my new belief because beliefs drive emotions, emotions drive decisions, decisions drive actions, actions drive habits, and makes you where you are today. You want to change it? You start with your beliefs.
And going back to your first analogy, Paul, is, the longevity in a company these days is getting increasingly shorter. And so with that flexibility, that you can look at it two ways. It's tragic in some respects for the individual that wants to, graduate from a single career over the span of their life, or it's exciting because I have many opportunities to learn new things and try out different activities as I age and graduate to another career or another exciting opportunity in my life.
Kelly, you're 20 years closer to the date of your birth than I am. And I'm telling you, boy, I'm telling you, enjoy the limitlessness of what's happening next in your path. And I used to kind of think, stop dreaming, just get the job done, just nose to the grind, stop dreaming. And now I'm realizing that as someone reaches out and goes, shouldn't that be worked on? I thought I was alone. I was caregiving in nearly 100 different private residences during 50s, early 60s. And, thinking, someone should do something about this. People don't know what to do. I'm going to have to figure out some way to help people to know about these things because I was shoulder to shoulder with people my age, boomers, who were just either saying, yay, I've had these great conversations with the people who care about me as I continue on, and just we've really talked about these things, or they literally turn to me and go, this has taken so much just to take care. I don't even know who's going to do all this for me. I don't know anyone who's going to do all of this for me. And I was thinking in my mind, people need to know, develop and strengthen and deepen and fortify relationships with multiple people, because they move away or they become, interested elsewhere or committed or something. And so have lots of relationships. Don't just narrow down. I'm just like, people should know this. Well, there's lots of people. I'm so grateful that I know now. There's lots of people that are working on that stuff.
There's actually, and there's always go back to research, but there's plenty of research too that talks about that the more social circles you have in different areas actually helps elevate how well you age. So you think about, yes, you should have those close friends, but then maybe you have friends through work, and you have friends through your church, and you have friends in your neighborhood. And the more of those circles you can cultivate actually helps influence your overall well-being, if you're following certain lifestyle behaviors or not. And there's always kind of that, I always call it social accountability. There's always kind of somebody who kind of has a read on you or a pulse on you. And so, oh, Kelly has been to the church in 3 weeks, or she hasn't been to her favorite card club in 3 weeks. She didn't tell us she was going out of town. Something's up. And you see that same thing in multifamily housing and even senior living settings, where you just start to keep an eye on each other. Same thing in your neighborhood. Like, I travel a ton for my job, and my neighbors know when I'm gone. And yes, I have a husband, but he's got a local sales job, so he's on the road each day. So people are like, oh, you're traveling again. We'll keep an eye on the place. I'm like, thank you. But it's just, we've kind of built in this support system, if you will. And I think you see that in different living settings. And so no matter where somebody chooses to age, I think that's okay. And that's their prerogative. But what is the support around them? If somebody wants to stay in their 50-year-old home, I think that's amazing. But are there people around you who kind of keep tabs on you? And vice versa, you look out for them regardless of age. And so
Yes.
I think when you have that kind of built in, no matter where you're residing and aging, and it just kind of helps. It just kind of helps you live a better quality of life and feel personally or emotionally secure at times.
You're missed when you're not there. You're noticed. They know what you're interested in. They know that you are there for them too. So you're contributing out. It's like, how can I be there for you in this wonderful endeavor you're going into, or this really difficult diagnosis you just received? How can I be there for you? It's going to reciprocate. It was like, well, can I want to be there for you if you're going through something too. It's amazing. When I was in college, I scoffed at the book. We Really Do Need Each Other. I hadn't even opened it yet, but I was told that I needed to read We Really Do Need Each Other. And I'm like, I don't need people. I've got all my stuff. I know what I want to do. I just, get out of my way. I didn't even want to go to college, but I had to do the job I wanted to. I was such a different person. And now I'm just like, oh, I love people. I'm just amazed. Russ, you have plans to document and film and capture moments, and people are different when you hand them a microphone, because I watched my husband do that at our family reunion just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they're different, and they're thinking, this is important. What do I want to have for all time ready? What do I want to put out? And then they get into it and they start getting really real, and what's really important starts flowing out of them. And we saw that happening in the ones that were our generation, as well as the ones who are the parents. And people flowing out with things like, wow, what was I so busy that I missed out on so much because, I got stuff I got to get done. I got to get done, do these things, whatever. So, Russ, do you have like a thought in mind of, I want to make sure that we say or do, or I have this in the background? Is there, or are you just going to let it just flow and take on a life of its own?
I have no structure planned. And I was reading an article the other day of a gentleman that was born in the 1700s, lived through the 1800s, and died in the 1900s. And I'm thinking, imagine if you could capture several decades of that adventure in his life and how that impacted him personally and the people around him. And I think, my mother grew up with, without indoor plumbing. And, a lot of kids these days can't even imagine that is even possible. And the reality is it's still possible. And, we want to talk about the changes, the positive outcomes of, making progress and some of the things that we're doing in a positive way, and asking questions and answering questions that, we may not even have considered in the past. And somebody else in the family might ask a question that triggers somebody else's idea. So, questions and listening can really, I think, promote a lot of conversation that we wouldn't normally have. So if we can go through and capture some of that free flowing idea, it's going to be, it will be whatever it ends up being. And then we can take and edit and allow it to take place and share it out with whoever wants to hear it.
Paul, you talked about a project and you used words that are outside of my realm. And I just want to tell you from, a person who just, is in my little life that's getting a lot bigger thanks to online communities. 18 months ago, my social media was texting and emails. And I was told that's not social media. So brand new life. So I'm literally telling you that while you were talking, I was remembering turning 30. And I don't watch daytime TV, so I'm just letting you know, if on your next project, your big endeavor, if you happen to bump into Oprah, it's Oprah Winfrey, she's in media somewhere. She had two 30-year-olds sitting on her stage. And I was 30 at that time. So this is more than 30 years ago. And they were talking about, wow, rip youth. We're done. We've seen the wrinkles. And basically, if we were going to really have a great life and fun and make a difference, our expiration date is coming up. And it was just all about, that was just young was good. Of course, there's a commercial break. And then in walk two 80-year-olds, 80-somethings. And I remember one lady saying, I am so busy taking care of this and being part of that and trying to keep up with all the great stuff that everybody of every age is doing. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself or feel old or feel like I shouldn't be, out there so much because, I should just be sitting back, and I just don't have time to feel bad that I am continuing to live. And I was just like, thank you. I needed that right then, because I was just like, I'm going into my 30s. I mean, this is just, I don't know why I thought that, but there are a lot of people who feel like they hit a certain number. And I even said it, hit. It's just like, bam, there's the wall. And it's like, I can't climb anymore. And wow. So numbers, candles, birthday cards, how many times around the sun on this planet. It's like, wow, no longer limiting, no longer looking at limits. One of you was talking about not limited, the other way. No, don't look at the limits. Look at how far you can go outside of the parameters that there's like a break. Up to the 1950s, there was a certain way that you did things. And if you didn't do it that way, that's just the wrong way. And then there's this break and everyone's like, hey, we go a lot of different directions. There's a lot of different rights. And then 2020 is the next break where people are like, wow, wait a minute, who am I? What have I been doing? So
Kelly, I see that you
yeah.
got to pop off in just a few minutes, but may I ask you a question, Kelly?
Of course, sir.
Isn't it true? No. So do you have a sense, or do you have a notion or a vision of, when 10, 15, 20 years from now, of at least, a view, a general concept or philosophy or approach or something you're looking forward to now that you're, learning all that you've been learning over your professional life?
I'm a very, I'm a planner, but I'm also a live in the moment kind of person. Sometimes to
Great, by the way.
dream. I mean, I lost my dad in a work accident. He was 60. So I have a tendency to approach life with an intensity and a tenacity that maybe some others don't. Like I'm not working for retirement. I'm not working to have $1 bajillion in the bank. Trust me, most Americans would probably be cringing right now listening to me, because I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow. And that might sound dark and morbid, but it's literally how I approach life, because nobody's guaranteed anything. And so for me, I'm like 65. I know I'm going to work till my foot's in the grave. My father was a lifelong entrepreneur. It drove my mom nuts. I was like, Mom, he's never going to retire. So you're just going to figure out how to cope. That's how I felt. Like my father and his dad was the same way. So I don't envision ever not working in some capacity, because I feel like I've got passion to impart and a work ethic, and I don't want to stop working. Like for me, it's part of my persona of who I am. Trust me, I get a lot of flack like, your professional life can't be who you are. But it is for me. Even at age 25, I knew I was put on this earth to do two things: help older adults and rescue animals. And I've got 3 cats and 3 dogs. And if I lived on a farm, I'd have a lot more. But I knew that at a young age. That might seem weird to discover that at such a young age, but I've always known that. And it's what I will continue to do in some form or fashion, no matter what. And so for me, it's okay, what are the things I need to be doing right now so I can continue to do those things? So trying to stay active. I stink at getting quality sleep. I drink too much wine. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm on this earth for who knows how long. So am I going to beat myself up over that? Probably not. And, I do on Fridays a self-care Friday video, because I work in a space, senior living and healthcare, that got beat up for 2 years. We're still dealing with some burnout and fallout. And so it was my way of giving back. Am I the self-care expert? I might know this stuff, but do I always practice it? No, because we're here to also enjoy and feel joy and passion and all of these things. So, I ride this fine line of, I know what to do to stay healthy and live a long time, but I can't stop a city bus sideswiping me. So guess what? I'm still going to live, and I'm going to try to adopt lifestyle habits to get there.
Kelly, that is a great answer. And it was a definite answer, because yes, it doesn't have to be, yes, at 63 and a half and 5 days, I'm going to be this. It's a philosophy of life. And it's not as if it's like, just real quickly, but this is so telling. And you brought it up a moment ago, Christine, when, you said you're a college student, you say, well, are you just going to stay busy? No, you're going to plan it. But how many people, I'm going to plan, I'm going to strategize, I'm going to work, and then I'm going to retire. Yeah. What? Whoa. What? And then what Kelly just gave us an insight on is she knows who she is.
Yeah.
She knows and accepts and embraces who she is. And she knows she's going to keep living that, because that's the other thing. People, and especially when you're younger, you think, oh, you become this other thing when you get older, and it's like, no, you're always going to be yourself. And my great-grandfather was a fairly successful artist. I remember reading a newspaper clipping about him, and he said, I really hope I can live to be 125, because right around then, I think I'll have a lot of this figured out and perfected. And we're talking like an article from 1926.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah. So
That's brilliant.
That is
brilliant
cool.
answer. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you, Kelly.
My pleasure. I do have to jump.
Yes, I was going to say it's a good thing you guys have other things to do, because I just want to sit here and go, tell me more. So thank you so much to Kathy. She is going to come on in November, because we got into a conversation on LinkedIn. And thank you to LinkedIn, and thank you to StreamYard, and thank you to you three people who met each other, enjoy each other, because you can find each other on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for just being here and being in this moment and projecting into the future and talking about history and considering everything that comes into our lives. Kelly says there's a reason why we're here, and I'm going to let you go be and do what that is, all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christine,
Thank
for having
you,
us.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye.